name's Rachel, and today we're going to talk about the fact that I finally read The Last Wish.
Please clap.
And we're going to compare it to The Night and Its Moon. As some of you may know, I may have once or twice said that I feel this book, The Night and Its Moon, did a little bit of borrowing, to put it nicely, from The Witcher. However, I did feel like the knocking off of The Witcher came from the TV show and the video game The Witcher 3. I have enjoyed both of those things myself, but I never actually finished reading The Last Wish, which is one of the first books in the Witcher series when I originally started it. So today I have finally finished The Last Wish in its entirety, and I want to compare and contrast between the first two books in these books' respective series. So the first book in the Night and Its Moon series and the first book in the Witcher series. Although this is technically like 0.5 of the Witcher series, I'll get there. The Night and Its Moon is about two girls, one who is sold into trafficking in the place of another, and the other goes off with a monster hunter to train at a keep in a mountain stronghold with other monster hunters, and eventually in later books will find her way back to the girl who was trafficked in her stead. The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski is a fantasy novel also, and it serves as the introduction to Geralt of Rivia, a professional monster hunter known as a Witcher, who we all know really just yearns to be the house husband of Yennefer of Vengerberg and stay-at-home dad to Ciri. Geralt, and also Ciri eventually, although not in this book, but Ciri, but definitely the Ciri look-alike, literally, from The Night and Its Moon, carry around their swords fighting monsters on their continents, using these swords to fight monsters. I do not do this. The closest I have gotten to doing this is by playing The Witcher 3 and by carrying my Ridge wallet and key case. I mean, I kind of wield this like a sword. They are metal, and I do wield the wallet like a weapon in the bookstore, except the person who loses that battle is myself. I've been using Ridge wallets for almost a year now. I have also turned my husband, my brother, and our friends, and my stepdad into Ridge wallet and key case carriers like a small army. But they don't just make wallets and key cases. Carlos is going on a work trip this month and recently stole both my Ridge backpack and my luggage. I can't blame him. I agree that they are gorgeous, but I am still salty about it. When we go to Brazil though, this puppy is mine. Look how many compartments it has for all the books I'm gonna bring with me. Ridge has redefined everyday carry essentials. Ridge wallet expands to hold up to 12 cards plus room for cash while remaining as slim as possible. They have 30 plus colors and styles, including leather if you want to go a more traditional route, but they also have these super cute flower patterns or pastel colors. Carlos loves his pastel purple wallet. AirTag attachments are also available on every relevant product, so you'll never lose your essentials again. And Ridge wallets and key cases make great gifts, and you can make it personalized with text or design to add that special touch to your gift. They're designed with RFID blocking materials that protect you from digital pickpocketers. Someone asked me how I get the cards out of this. It's super easy. You just push up on the bottom and then it comes out and you just pull out what you need. Ridge has a lifetime warranty and a 365-day risk-free trial. You can set it back for a full refund if you don't love it. These wallets are gonna hold up though. They are sturdier than Geralt's swords, but only because Geralt's swords are fictional. Ridge is having a special sale for their 11-year anniversary for a limited time only. You can save up to 30% by going to ridge.com/readswithrachel or by clicking that link in the description box below and using code readswithrachel. So click that link below to grab your gear, and thank you so much to Ridge for sponsoring today's video. Let's first talk, I have so much to say about these two books. So let's first talk about what The Last Wish is. Again, we are only trying to compare and contrast book one in this series and book one in this series. I think there's probably more comparisons to be made, but we are only comparing these two books. That's it. Otherwise, I feel like I'd have to make like a chart and I would spend way too much time on this. The Last Wish is set in a like 13th century Poland type fantasy world. This originally is a Polish fantasy series. It features a monster hunter and monsters such as a Kikimora and others that don't typically pop up in everyone's favorite fantasy books, like, you know, dragons. The Last Wish in particular is a book that is a collection of short stories that are interconnecting in ways mostly thematically, and it follows Geralt and all of them as he faces mythical creatures, dealing with politics, and pondering on moral ambiguity as Geralt is wont to do. It's a series of like Geralt's encounters with different people, beings, places, political issues. Not just people, other races like elves, and we're doing a lot of like Geralt pondering on the themes of not just morality but destiny. Destiny is kind of a huge theme of The Witcher. Every story we see Geralt grappling with a different issue, a new dilemma. Sometimes it's a monster, and other times it's navigating personal relationships with sorceresses and elves and royals and angry townspeople. This is also the book that the audience actually sees for the first time Geralt and Yennefer of Vengerberg meeting. Geralt is a stoic at heart, but also a golden retriever. Geralt is a very distinctive character whose personal code of ethics is often going to be at odds with the people he's having to deal with, or the people-ish things, stuff. What? Like elves and shit. Even though he kills monsters for money, he has a very strong set of personal ethics and a honor code that he follows. He can often be seen being very empathetic towards others, which again is not typical for the world that he inhabits, so it's going to put him at odds regularly with other people. However, it's not without its faults. There's some pretty blatant misogyny in here, and I don't love all the world building if I'm like objectively looking at the text here and not just relying on what I already know from playing The Witcher 3 and watching the show. Now I will say that this might be my fault because I chose to go in chronological order in the story timeline rather than in publication order. If I had done publication order, it would have been Sword of Destiny, then The Last Wish, then Blood of Elves, etc. Chronologically, which is the route that I chose to take, is The Last Wish, then The Sword of Destiny, and then Blood of Elves. So I wonder if Sword of Destiny is where a lot of explanations for things are going to be that were not in The Last Wish. Like, what is a druid? What's the difference between a druid and a sorcerer? I've got zero clue. The Last Wish did not tell me. Within The Last Wish, again, are several short stories, and if you've watched the TV show, you might be familiar with several of the plot and characters and stuff. So in like the first one, The Witcher, where we are dealing with a princess who is a monster, the Striga, who eats people, and her dad is the king. Then the Voice of Reason, which pops up several times. It's sort of how like the book The Last Wish begins and ends, and then you get interspersed in the middle. We're seeing chapters of the short story The Voice of Reason sort of interspersed. It's featuring the cult of Melitelli. Is that how you say that? Geralt hanging out there, talking to a sorceress there, dealing with not wanting to like deal with his destiny, trying to avoid Yennefer, getting in fights with people. In A Grain of Truth, we see Nivellen, who popped up in season 2 of The Witcher. And the Bruxa, the Lesser Evil, where we meet Renfri, the princess, who is part of a prophecy. Rest in peace, I love you, bitch. Then we see A Question of Price, where we first meet Ciri, Cirilla's parents and grandma, long before there was a Ciri. Well, 9 months before there was a Ciri. Then The Edge of the World is where we deal with like this goat man.
What happened with you motherfucker goat?
Did your motherfucker snowman?
And some elves and a goddess. And then The Last Wish, where Geralt first meets Yennefer and they bond. Should I call it that? Over a gin? Can we call it bonding over a gin? Is that? I feel like we can call it that. So this book, the point of it, I would say, is it's doing a lot of thematic work. And that's because Geralt is a very broody and introspective chap. All he wants to do is talk. So the themes in The Last Wish, let's like go over them, and then I will compare them to The Night and Its Moon. Well, I'll try. So the themes in The Last Wish are themes of identity and destiny. Destiny is like the big Witcher theme. Destiny.
Find Geralt of Rivia. He is your destiny.
Is it unavoidable? So Geralt struggles with his identity as a Witcher, which is a Witcher is a mutated monster hunter, and the way that society perceives him for being a Witcher.
You don't give the orders around here, you mutant son of a bitch.
He also deals with the concept of destiny and whether or not his destiny is like predetermined by his identity as a Witcher, or if he has any agency whatsoever. That's why we see particular mythological creatures used in these short stories, like the Djinn, because we're having like a conversation about the difference between like having free will and having your destiny like be predetermined. Another major theme is morality and the consequences of choices that you make. There's a lot of shades of gray here of morality. No, I do not think that that is a reason why we are cool with the misogyny in here. I don't buy that. But Geralt does operate in a very morally gray world where good and evil are not always clear. And his own choices have consequences that he doesn't foresee. Again, kind of weaves in the destiny issue. But when he makes certain choices, he has to then reflect upon whether or not what he did was ethical. I think that this is a lot of what we experience in The Lesser Evil, where he is told, can you please go kill Renfrey? And he's like, I don't want to do that. Hi, I'm sorry. I feel like I need to give you a little more context on the short story inside The Last Wish that I'm referencing here, which is The Lesser Evil, which is about Renfrey, a former princess, Geralt running into her, and Stregobor the sorcerer. So if you've not seen the TV show, or watched the TV show, or you have not read the book, then I feel like you might be a little lost here. So I wanted to give you a little more information. This one is my particular favorite short story because I really like the theme that we're doing here, and I like how sad the ending is and how the consequences of this stay with Geralt. So Geralt goes to the town of Blaviken and ends up killing a particular monster on the way there, and delivers it to the town. Is like, hey, is anybody gonna pay me for the corpse of this monster? And they're like, no, you can go ask that sorcerer who lives here if he wants it for something. So he goes to talk to the sorcerer, who's Stregobor, and Stregobor's like, no, I don't want that corpse, but what I could use from you is you killing this woman who's in this town right now. She's trying to kill me, and the lesser evil would be for you to kill her. She's a terrible person. She's a monster. And so he tells Geralt that this is one of the girls who was born during basically an eclipse, and that she is a monster because of that. And basically she is, this is like it's a folk tale. It's a Snow White sort of tale. So this was a princess who was sent to be killed by her stepmother and Stregobor, this sorcerer who believes that she's a monster. And she was taken out into the woods by a man. And instead of her being killed, she ended up getting away. And she has amassed this following who protects her. And so now they're in the town of Blaviken, and she's trying to get revenge for Stregobor ruining her life. And what ends up happening is Stregobor asks Geralt to get involved. Geralt's like, I don't get involved in stuff like this. I'm neutral. I don't want any involvement. Geralt runs into Renfrey. They have some conversation. They have some sex. And he doesn't want to get involved, but both Stregobor and Renfrey believe that Geralt killing the other would be the lesser evil, and Geralt ponders on this and says, no, I don't think so. What ends up happening in the end is that he is put in a position where Renfrey makes the first move, and she and her men all end up killed by Geralt, and then the consequences of this is that the entire town of Blaviken fucking hates Geralt and tells him to get the fuck out. And this obviously breaks Geralt's heart. So wanted to give you some context. This is my favorite short story in the mix, I think, and I wanted to give you more information. So he ends up killing Renfrey and all of Renfrey's men, even though he didn't want to. And then the whole town hates him for it. Geralt is constantly navigating moral implications of dealing with monsters and politics. Another main theme of The Witcher is love. And this isn't displayed just in how Geralt obviously falls in love very quickly, I will say, with Yennefer, but also it's shown in Nivellen, who has been living with a Bruxa, a monster who's been eating people. Another theme we see a lot in The Witcher is discriminating against folks. Geralt himself gets discriminated against quite a bit for being a Witcher, and also prejudices that we hold against other people who are different. Geralt faces a lot of mistrust because of his identity as a Witcher.
People call you a monster too.
A mutant.
What if they come after you, attack you?
They have.
Why not kill them?
Because then I am what they say I am.
Because he is a mutant, he gets called a mutant a lot. That word gets weaponized against him quite a bit. But also he witnesses non-human beings like elves experience being marginalized by the society that they inhabit. And this world is really dominated by humans. And I guess the sorcerers are humans, even though some of them are, part elf. Mostly this world is dominated by humans. We're also doing quite a lot of discussion around power corrupting people, how unchecked authority leads to corruption. This is really obvious in how Stregobor manipulates magic against girls like Renfrey. I think that the reason that Geralt does not like to get involved in things, even though he always ends up involved, is because he sees how unchecked power leads to such corrupt actions and does not want to himself get involved in that. So he's always wanting to remain neutral and then ends up involved anyway. So those are the themes of The Witcher. Witcher, let's talk a little bit about The Night and Its Moon. So The Night and Its Moon is about two girls, Nox and Amaris, who grew up together in a church-run orphanage. The church worships the All-Mother. Nox is 3 years older and has always had a thing for Amaris, has always been very drawn to Amaris. But their relationship initially comes off quite sisterly. We are also doing like the idea of destiny here. However, I would say that it doesn't really play a part in the first book in particular. It more comes up like this conversation of destiny in the third book. Amaris is white, lily white, with purple eyes and eventually a scar over her. Is that her left eye? Which, you know, I mean... I'm just gonna move on. Nox is of a race of people from the northern country who, according to the commissioned art and literally everything, evidence-wise, points to those people being, you're supposed to perceive them as South Asian in appearance. Nox is always taking care of Amaris at the orphanage and gets whipped in Amaris' place when they are kids because Amaris' value comes from her perfect milky skin. The orphanage is run by women who are peddling children. They are trafficking and selling children, and so they want to be able to sell Amaris for a very high price. Amaris shows signs to the audience of having the power to manipulate people through her voice. When she's around 14, I believe, she's about to be sold to a brothel owner named Millicent. Amaris convinces a reaver, which is basically a witcher, is a monster hunter who lives in a keep in the mountains, to take her with him to where he lives. She leaves Nox behind. Nox is sold to the brothel owner in Amaris' stead. Meanwhile, Amaris grows up at the Reaver Keep, which is called Reeve, and trains in monster hunting and sword fighting and deals with them not wanting to let her in because they're sort of misogynistic. But they do let her in. She starts training. She learns monster hunting, about monsters in general, sword fighting, potion making, and again has a scar over a very particular eye. Nox again gets taken to the brothel as Millicent's quote consolation prize, where her virginity is sold. She eventually learns that she is a succubus, and this power makes her more beautiful and also deadly, but only to men. After they grow up, Amaris is sent on a mission with her fellow Reavers to talk to the queen of the country they're in, called Queen Moire. She runs into a winged fae from the northern country. She doesn't think much about Nox, but Nox always thinks about her. Nox is constantly calculating and making plans so that they can be back together. She uses her succubus powers to get men to do her bidding, while striking up a sexual relationship with a woman named Emily, who also came from the orphanage, who loves Nox, but Nox does not reciprocate those feelings. In the end, Nox and Amaris are briefly reunited in a dungeon, only to be ripped apart again. There's really not too much actual plot here, so you would think that if there's not like an overarching plot, because there's not really an overarching plot in The Last Wish either, right? Then you would want to do, although The Last Wish is a series of short stories, so it's a bit different, but if you're gonna do a book that doesn't have a ton of plot, you need to be doing a ton of character work and doing something strong thematically. What is the theme of this book? I don't know. I tried. I have read it twice. I've even read books 2 and 3. I don't really know. Maybe love conquers all? I don't know. This is a problem I've noticed in a lot of books I've read recently, where I ask myself a very basic question. What is the point? What is the author intending here? What is the purpose of this? So let me explain why I don't think this book has a theme, and I first of all prefer The Witcher over it, but also I think that it was just trying to recreate feelings from certain Witcher media, and that doesn't work if you're not also doing theme. Alright, so theme in literature refers to the central idea or message that the author is trying to get across to the audience. It's the underlying insight to the story, and the story, the characters, and the events all point towards this. It's not just a thing being present, it permeates all of the story elements. Work is done to make sure that all of the elements are being used to convey this theme. Themes are often like universal concepts about truths about human nature or society that we live in, or the world at large. What a theme is and is not, okay, let's just differentiate real quick. What a theme is a central idea. It's what the story is really about beyond its plot and its characters, although they do help to enhance the conversation around said theme. So the example here with The Last Wish, the central theme I would say is destiny. Is it avoidable? Is it not? Is it coming for you whether you acknowledge it or not, Geralt? Do little moments and choices that you make affect your destiny? Do you have any free will? Do you have any agency? Theme is universal truths. Themes are often universal truths that resonate with readers across time, across culture. They address fundamental aspects aspects of the experience of being human, what it means to experience life as a human. So an example is in Legendborn by Tracy Dion, a universal human experience found in that book is the theme of grief. In this case, Bree's grief of losing her mother. Themes are all, I keep wanting to say also, I mean often. Themes are often like, the way that you do theme is through recurrences. Themes are often like reinforced through small details, patterns, symbols, motifs. These are things that you use to draw attention over and over to this central message. So a really good example of this is in Adanya Shibley's Minor Detail. Small recurring patterns or minor details are mirrored between the story, two different parts, because there's two different parts in two different times in Palestine, two different women, and the author is very smartly drawing attention to these very small details that grab the second protagonist's attention, and then the reader starts to notice them as well. It's a book that you want to go back so that you can see where the author did these recurring patterns over and over again. What theme is not is plot summary. Theme is not a summary of events that occurred in a book. The plot can contribute to the development of theme, but they are distinct things. So for example, in Furyborn, we have a plot that contains angels and even reference to a god, but I would not call Furyborn a book whose themes include religious commentary.
2 days later.
Okay, I am back. Where were we? Well, my laptop's dead, so. Okay, I think, I was talking about Alatsue. Okay, so what theme is not is character traits. So a theme is not an individual character trait. A theme is not a character having freckles. A theme is not a character's sexuality. A theme is not a character being sarcastic. These things can be used to represent themes in the story. They can be used to do more with the theme of the story, but a character trait is not theme. So for instance, in Alatsue by Darcy Littlebadger, our main character Alatsue is told to us to be asexual, and her family knows this and they accept this. But that does not make the theme of the book queerness. It is a queer book, but it is not about, the theme is not what it means to be queer in the way that like Simon versus the Homo sapien agenda is about queerness. Theme is not a single word or a common phrase. So while we may repeat the same word like freedom, a keyword is not a theme. And a theme is not singular discussion. Bringing up something one time does not make that discussion the book's theme. Like, it can be done, I guess, maybe, but normally theme is important to the author and it doesn't come up like that. There's an authorial intent behind making a work have a theme. And as I said, I don't know what the theme of The Night and Its Moon is, because we don't really have that underlying meaning or insight that the story, the characters, and the plot, and the events all point towards. Like, we're doing stuff, we're saying things, stuff is happening, we're going places, but I don't think that anywhere in here is an overarching theme. Now, do books need one? I guess not. I mean, there's no like hard and fast rule, but I certainly prefer it as a reader. I mean, that's half the fun of The Last Wish, is like Geralt's ponderings on destiny as well as destiny coming for Geralt whether he likes it or not. Now, I asked a few people I know who read The Night and Its Moon, what's the theme? And the answer I got from at least one person was there isn't one, and everybody else was sort of like, So to do my due diligence, I went to the 5-star reviews of this book to see what like fans, people who loved the book, thought the theme was. So one of the reviews said themes of race, objectification, feminism, equality, self-empowerment, child trauma, abuse, misandry, and misogyny. So it's okay for reviewers to disagree. You can have a totally different reading experience than me. I do disagree with this. I don't think that these were themes in the book. I think some stuff happened that was related to those things, but I don't think that we did any actual thematic work with them. And another one that I saw, this book also has impressive religious commentary exploring the multifaceted, oh fuck, my mouth is doing the thing again. Exploring the multifacetedness of religion and religious trauma. This one I strongly disagree with, not in like a mean way, but like in a opinion way. What? I'm actually going to use this as a jumping off point to start my official compare and contrast between The Last Wish and The Night and Its Moon. So in order to use religion as a theme, you have to have a cohesive use of religion in the first place, which is not done in The Night and Its Moon. Whereas in The Last Wish, we are hopping around from place to place and we're experiencing a plurality of belief. We spend several parts of The Last Wish hanging with a priestess, Neneki, of the cult of Melitele. Is that what it's called? And it says, the cult of Melitele was one of the oldest and in its day, one of the most widespread cults from from time immemorial. Practically every pre-human race and every primordial nomadic human tribe honored a goddess of harvest and fertility, a guardian of farmers and protectors, a patroness of love and marriage. Many of these religions merged into the cult of Melitele. She did not lack either followers or sponsors. In explaining the popularity of the goddess, learned men who studied this phenomenon used to hark back to the pre-cults of the Great Mother, Mother Nature, and pointed to the links with nature's cycle. Now, this gives me a lot of information that is very easily digestible and helps me understand how different religious beliefs have formed and changed over time, and how we got to the cult of Melitele. Now, Geralt himself doesn't personally have belief in things like deities. When the priestess, Neneki, says she wants to put him under a trance, essentially, wants to have this other woman put him under a trance, he says, "Don't you think my lack of faith makes such a trance pointless?" And she says, "It would be the first proof I've ever heard that a lack of faith has any kind of power at all." And later he tells another follower of Melitele, who does not speak, which I don't like, "You're silent through choice. You've made it a sacrifice to your goddess. I don't believe in Melitele. I don't believe in the existence of other gods either, but I respect your choice, your sacrifice." So we do a lot of establishing of differences in belief right from the jump in The Last Wish, in a way that really makes sense to me, and not because I watched the show. A lot of my understanding of The Witcher comes from watching the show and playing The Witcher 3, but this in particular, everything that I know comes from reading the book, which is great. That means we did good world building, in my opinion. And laying the groundwork for Geralt to brood over and ponder about things like religion for the rest of the book is a great way to set up what the dynamics of the different religious ideas are in this world that we're building. The Night in Its Moon, in contrast, does not do this. Plurality of religion and the different beliefs within these, especially in the first two books, but we're focusing here, is not explored. And because a lot of things hinge on the religious belief, we did need to do that upfront in this first book. What is done is very surface level and sometimes contradicts itself. A lot of it doesn't really make sense to me. We have a religion that the majority of the countries and people that we're dealing with in the book follow. They all worship a deity called the All-Mother, not to be confused with the aforementioned Great Mother from The Last Wish. The religious deity is a woman. The main priestess at the temple of the All-Mother is a woman. The temple is women only are allowed in. And then the church itself is completely separate from this, but not in a way that makes any sense. The church is run by bishops who sometimes take fae children away or children with abilities, and also the orphanage that our main characters Nox and Amaris grow up in is run by the church. A bishop shows up, but the nuns are presiding over it day to day. There's never an explanation given for why there's such a disconnect between this setup with the bishops coming and beating children at this orphanage run by these nuns who are exploiting these children, who are selling them off, and this temple full of women. I don't know how we got both of these things that are so different coming from the same religion, and explaining that would have been great. If we're doing one religion rather than what we're doing in The Witcher, which is several that have evolved over time, then we need to explain these differences in belief and how this main huge religion that is so universal is affecting the politics. How much power does the church have versus the temple? What do each of these use that power for? We are told that Amaris, in growing up in this orphanage run by the church, learned prayers and, quote, the virtues, but we have no context for what those are, and it does not inform anything throughout the rest of our story. It doesn't inform other characters, it doesn't inform the politics, it doesn't inform leaders. The hierarchy based on gender in this book doesn't make sense to me. If this very important and universal religion is a matriarchy, if this is the main squeeze religion rather than over here where we have multiple religions, and then we could have some conflict when the main character who grew up in one part of this world with this one particular religion goes out and finds that what she was taught in this church run by these mean bishops and these bad nuns is different than what the other parts of the world are experiencing with this religion, even if they all came from the same place. How did we get to these different places, and how does that inform the lives of people that our main characters come into contact with? And when you grow up in like such a strict religious environment and you go out and you meet people who did not, there is a sense of like what was lost that I think we really could have had what it means to like deal with like the multifacetedness of religion, but we didn't. I really wish that we could have had that, because there's really like this sense of grief when you realize like what you experienced is such a sad and lonely and strict and rigid and harsh environment compared to how other people grew up. Like that's definitely how I perceive my exit from Fundyland and seeing people who didn't grow up like me. High school was a rude awakening for me. Again, I think that we really should have had these be two separate religions, even if they came from the same place in a world full of plurality of religions, and then some of the misogyny would have made more sense. Now let's actually talk about the misogyny, because I think misogyny is done in both books, but I have to say that The Last Wish is worse. The Last Wish is way worse towards women in a way that makes me super uncomfortable. Like, this is nothing compared to that. The amount of women who don't speak in The Last Wish but appear on page to be silent or be sexualized or be sexually assaulted and or murdered is abundant, to put it nicely. Basically, the only women who speak in here are the Princess Neneki, the queen / Ciri's grandma, the woman Iola, who the priestess Neneki sends to put Geralt in a trance and to sleep with him, I think, is silent. She never says anything. He talks at her for a whole chapter and she literally says nothing. For what? What did this bring to the story? Ciri's mother, Pavetta, is not 14 in the show. She is 14 in the book, and she literally only says like 2 words. And at the end of the short story with her, she's asked, "Are you pregnant with Ciri?" And it says, oh, by the way, she is a 14-year-old who's pregnant by a grown-ass man. Just want to make that clear. And it says, when she's asked, "Are you pregnant?" it says she gave her answer. You couldn't even just have her say yes? You added more words to keep her from talking? What? Geralt talks about his first monster he fought as a witcher, who was just a man, and this man was raping a young girl, who became terrified at the sight of Geralt. The Bruxa that lives with Nivellen doesn't technically speak, she mind speaks, and she's just an evil, wicked, woman-like creature who kills people and lives with Nivellen. And Nivellen himself was cursed because he raped a priestess who was then murdered, a priestess at a temple somewhere. Nivellen gets sent a bunch of daughters to give him company, who he pays for the company of, who we never see on page, until the Bruxa shows up. The Bruxa who again only mind speaks and is evil. The princess who's a mother doesn't, what? The princess who's a monster doesn't talk, the Striga, she doesn't talk, and her own mom died as a result of having her after having sex with her own brother. All of this just doesn't really give me the warm fuzzies as a woman. But wait, there's more! Renfri is but one of a bunch of murdered girls because of a prophecy, and the sorcerer Stregobor is explaining why these girls needed to be murdered after he conjures an illusion of naked women. He says they're the girls he thinks should have been murdered. Their outright insane tendency to cruelty, aggression, sudden bursts of anger, and an unbridled temperament were noted. Geralt says, you can say that about any woman. What? The goddess Leela literally does not speak. She doesn't speak. And at that point, we were at 3 women in the story, in the set of short stories, who either barely spoke or did not speak. Maybe 4. And I'll be honest, at that point, I was a little bit ready to punch the author in the face. The lack of agency for women in this, I don't understand. Like, 1 would be like, that's ick. 2? Why twice? More? Come on now. Lack of agency, treating women like props and objects, and not really seeing a good in-world reason for this? Like, at least explain to me why you're doing it. And I don't like it. I know that it's from the 90s. I don't see that as a valid reason. I'm sure that Andrzej Sapkowski was, around women in the 90s. In The Night and Its Moon, it is significantly less misogynistic. However, I would still say that we are doing misogyny and not saying misogyny bad, but certainly not to the degree of The Last Wish. Women are seen as a commodity in sex work, in a way, not even sex work, they're trafficked in a way that men are not, and I'm not really sure why. We didn't really get a good in-world answer for this. Amaris calls the men the lesser sex. Men aren't allowed in the Temple of the All-Mother, but then she faces raging misogyny at the Reaver Mountain, just like Ciri did. Nox is not given any agency in this book. She's repeatedly sexually assaulted, she's fetishized for her features, and her trauma from dealing with this is not dealt with in a way that I felt was appropriate. And I would say that definitely both books, I think, fail to write sex work in a way that seems empowering to sex workers, because sex work is work, it's valid work, but I don't think that either book exemplifies that. The empowerment moments for Nox, who is a succubus, is in that she drains the life from men with her power. Again, we did sort of a version of witchers in this, and there really was no reason not to make women witchers. I mean, we all worship the All-Mother. I don't really understand what we were doing here. And we definitely don't, and this is really frustrating, have any women friendship in this. How do we not have sex worker solidarity on page where Nox has friends? All she has is Emily, who she sleeps with, but Emily is in love with her and Nox does not reciprocate those feelings. And then Emily eventually dies because of her love for Nox, and Nox doesn't know this, and honestly by the end of the book sort of forgets about Emily because she's fixed on Amaris, who doesn't seem to think about her at all. If we're doing the theme of misogyny, do it. Have misogyny be something that happens and do the work to talk about it. But just having misogyny be something that happens, that's it, without a point to it, is not a book that's doing misogyny as theme. As far as world building outside of like religions go, terms like witch, druid, sorceress were not being explained, and this is a problem in both books. A lot of what I know, I realize, is not because the book The Last Wish said it. I'm familiar with the show and the one game, so there's a lot that I know that I fall back to because of those, and I want to actually review the book fairly, not just rely on what I know from other versions in different formats of media. There is some explanations, that questions that got answered towards the end, which was great, but I still would like to have a better understanding than I do. I also might, again, be at fault here for reading chronologically rather than by publishing order, but I'm not sure. How these different people come into play with the different religions is better explained, as I said, in The Last Wish than it is in The Night and Its Moon. But again, both are using a lot of undefined terms. I was really frustrated in The Night and Its Moon for throwing around the term witch and not defining what a witch is. Like at one point, the brothel owner, Millicent, one of the teen girls, our main character, says she looks like a witch. And at that point, I had no idea what the book was talking about, and I thought that that would get explained later, and it didn't. Now, it turned out that technically Millicent is a witch because she has a lizard hand with the touch of death, but she keeps it covered with a glove. So there's no way for anybody to have known that she was a witch if that is what makes her a witch. So what does a witch look like? How do you identify them on site if you can do that at all? And witches do exist in this world, but it's not until book 3 that I kind of got a better understanding, and again, I'm just reviewing book 1. And if we have a witch, which we do, spending a lot of time with us in book 1, then we should have a good grasp on who we're dealing with. Now, we have elves in The Last Wish, and enough information is given in this book that I understand what's going on there, where the elves are seen as lesser. However, again, this was reinforced by me watching the TV show, so it's hard for me to divorce that. In The Night and Its Moon, we don't have elves, we have fae, monsters, and again, the mostly unexplained witches. The monsters are cool in both books. To be honest, I wish that both books had more monster hunting. Like, I could have done with more monster hunting. Like, we have a Witcher-esque type person in here who literally looks like Ciri, and then we have Geralt, who is the Witcher. So I honestly could have used more monster hunting from both books. However, again, this might be my fault because, once again, I didn't read in publication order, so maybe you get more in the actual first book of The Witcher. One theme that I do wish had been explored in The Night and Its Moon that I think was done in The Last Wish very well is what it means to be a monster, because you can say something is a monster and you can say someone is a monster. I think that's such a great theme that has so much potential in a fantasy setting to really like pull a lot of weight for your story and really make an impact on your reader. There's a moment in The Grain of Truth where the Bruxa is murdered and it says the head fell onto the gravel. There are fewer and fewer monsters, and when am I? Because they had talked about how previously there are fewer and fewer monsters in the world, but are there when people can be monsters just as much? And characters, oh boy. Lack of building the relationship between Nox and Amaris from the beginning really does not do any service to the readers. I wish that we had not made them so sisterly, and then when they are separated, Amaris forgets entirely about Nox and does not think about her, and Nox only thinks about Amaris. For The Witcher, I'm glad I started with The Last Wish because I wanted to see how Yen and Geralt met, and I know that the scene of them actually meeting, which is the story with the Jinn, was in The Last Wish in particular, and I gotta be honest, I didn't love it. I thought I'd like it more. I love Yen, but her intro to her here felt overly snappy in a way that just felt gratuitous. I hate to say this, but it was done better in the show, in my opinion. I also didn't really understand, and I was reading this part at bedtime, so if I'm mistaken, then, you know, that's my bad. But if we were actually seeing Geralt meeting Dandelion for the first time, it was not as exciting as I was hoping that it would be. But Dandelion on page is so great, although I did listen to a little bit of this on audio, and the narrator called him Dandelion, and I was like, which one of us is wrong? I love the two of them together. It just felt like the intro to Dandelion in this was sort of anticlimactic. I ended up giving The Last Wish a 3. I felt like so much more could have been done for women Or rather, so much could have not been done against women in this, and we could have had more monster hunting, but I do really love the world. However, I admit that I'm not sure if I love the world because I'm re-experiencing stuff and seeing a little bit more of a picture that I've already been shown through watching the media in different formats. So it's really hard for me to divorce those concepts in my mind when I'm trying to give a fair rating. I think we all know that I did not like The Night and Its Moon. I don't really have much good stuff to say about it. Every time there's like a grain of potential, it doesn't really produce anything. And there's no characters that I love to see me through the way there is in this. I mean, Geralt is such a great character to sit along with, except when he's being misogynist. Other than that, I love to listen to Geralt ponder and think about things. I will say that with him meeting Yen the way he did, that was insta love. I mean, it was the most insta love to insta love that I've seen this month, or last month certainly. Well, no, that's not true. Well, yeah, it is. Actually, this is probably the most I mean, it was instant that he was obsessed with her. And like, I get it on the one hand, but on the other, we really could have done more cultivation, and it doesn't help that I didn't really like Yennefer's introduction, but I do really love the theme of destiny and how potent that is in that story. In particular, The Last Wish is the short story inside of the short story collection that is about destiny the most. I thought it was really smart how we wrote Geralt doing the wishes and how, you know, destiny will find you. It tied them together, and then like, you know, the Djinn is a character of destiny in and of itself. So I think that there's a lot of like really smart writing here. I think there's a lot of like great like broody sort of golden retriever guy just wants to ponder life and hang out with pals and wants everybody to get along and wants to be very neutral, and then ends up in shenanigans. I love it. I love Geralt as a character. I love the monster hunting. I just wish that we had done a little bit more world building in and of the, I don't understand what a druid is. I don't know what a druid is versus a sorcerer in The Last Wish. I have no idea what the differences are between those two things. And again, the misogyny is just rampant. So I would say 3 stars for The Last Wish, and then this I still give a 1 because again, I cannot separate the fact that this seems to have taken quite a bit from Witcher media. Not so much this book though. So if we are comparing these two things, there's not a ton that they have in common. All the stuff that this seems to be reflecting is in the game, The Witcher 3, and the TV show, as I thought. So that is my compare and contrast of The Last Wish and The Night and Its Moon Book 1. I hope you liked it. Let me know your thoughts on The Last Wish if you have read it, and let me know if you like the show better, because in some ways I do like the show better. I like more of the character work that we did here, and I think that Geralt in the books is more philosophical than he is in the show, which isn't that probably why Henry Cavill left? I really like book Geralt's ponderings much more, just don't like his misogyny. So let me know if you feel the same or if you feel completely different. Let me know if you noticed any similarities or differences or whatever between these two books, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Hello! It's time for Trash Can Rachel to do our departing thank yous. So first of all, to my Therapy Bills patrons, thank you for being a friend. To Alexander, Brittany Babitney, Cami, Choco's Waiting for Not All Men podcast. I will alert Carlos immediately. Chris, DJ Rogtopus, Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron with 2 E's, Aaron, what? Eric, sorry. Wow, yikes. Ethel Golightly, JC Murphy, Jack, Jess, Jessie, Jill, John E, Julie D, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Caitlin M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max Baker, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Rachel C, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shadow Auntie, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph, 2 Orbit, Shy Guy, and the Salem T. Lynn. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Search Marxist patrons: Alicia, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Bats, Bookish Brain Rot, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Clementine, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Danielle, Darren, Deborah, Diet Goth, Dilf Enthusiast, nice. Dorian, Dorothea, Evie, Ember, Emerald Dodge, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Aaron, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Gadarn. You're gonna have to tell me how to say that. I'm sorry. Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Haley, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Gender Queer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jillian, Jojo Bookish, Kai, Kat, Catherine, Katie, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lauren, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, MV Marlowe, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, MK Books, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rivy, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Secoria, Sadie, Sarah Riley, Sekia Lume, Samantha O, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean T. Delegati, Tay, Talia, Three Old Dogs, Tiana, Toast, Trash Can Teddy, Ty, Tito Phoenix, Wiki Cherry, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and being a friend.